Good Tuesday morning. We are back this morning to receive God's good stuff for today. I hope you took a few moments yesterday and maybe even this morning to give God thanks for one of God's most beautiful creations, you. I hope you gave thanks for God for just who you are. You have been beautifully and wonderfully made, and we need all reminders to take time to allow God's love to seep into our hearts, to allow God to simply love us so that we can love ourselves more and therefore love others more as well. Let's get back to this morning to the Song of Songs. We are in chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. Yesterday I read from the NRSV translation, and this morning I read from the NIV translation. I am a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys. Like a lily among thorns is my darling among the young women. When I spent a year traveling South Carolina on behalf of Imagine No Malaria, a campaign that we did as United Methodists around the world, I was responsible for here in South Carolina for us United Methodists to raise $1 million to help end needless deaths from malaria in Africa. As I did this, I learned a lot from several traditions from the people of all over Africa. One of the things I learned was that most babies are not named immediately. Most Western people, we already have a name picked out. We give birth and we slap that name on the child. But most babies are not named in such a way in many countries in Africa. Some people groups name babies 10 days after birth and others wait several years. The sad reality is that infant mortality is very high in many countries in Africa, in part due to malaria, but in general, infant mortality is high, so mothers and fathers and communities wait to see if a baby will survive the first several days or weeks or months or even years before naming that child. But when a baby is named, a child is named, there is often a huge naming celebration steeped in very thoughtful ritual and tradition. It is a whole community affair. Names are very important to many people here in the West, but also to many of the tribes and people groups all over Africa. They, over in many countries in Africa, believe that a name can shape a person's character. A name can shape a person's personality and identity. A name creates expectation that can influence a child's destiny. That's a lot for a name to do. Names are often rooted in the very real and deep abiding hopes of parents and communities. Giving a name to a child that they can grow into, almost like a predictive or foretelling of what the future holds for this child. Imagine growing up with a name, a very strong name like Chinonso, which means God is close, or Olowokere, which means wealthy people are not small, or Anaiwu. Sorry, these African names are a little hard for me to say, and if you know African dialect, I promise for messing up. Anewu, which means this one will not die. Names are less about what a child is now, but what a child will grow up to be. I tell you all this because this came back to me as I read these verses from Song of Songs. This is the idea I hear in the exchange between the bride and bridegroom of Song of Solomon. In verse 1, while the words are very poetic and beautiful, the speaker, the bride, is simply calling herself a wildflower among many other wildflowers. Beautiful, yes, but just a wildflower, a plain wildflower in a beautiful, bountiful field. But the bridegroom's responds, no, you are more than that. You are no ordinary wildflowers among just a field of wildflowers. You are a beautiful flower among thorns. Can you see this speaker in verse 1? Her posture goes from feeling rather ho-hum and ordinary to this bridegroom speaking to her in such a way, naming her in such a way that she suddenly starts to feel very extraordinary. Her posture goes from this to one of pride, of feeling loved. She goes from overlooking her uniqueness to seeing her uniqueness. She goes from seeing herself through her own eyes, which, let's be honest, are the most critical eyes anybody looks at ourselves with, are our own eyes, to seeing herself through the eyes of one who loves her. The bridegroom's words lift her up, calling her to what is and what can be, and that shapes how she sees herself. And it shapes maybe even her destiny, her future, how she goes into the future. God calls each of us beloved, seeing us how the bridegroom in the Song of Songs sees his bride, beautiful, wonderful, loved, lovely, a lily among thorns. Knowing this is how God sees us should make us stand a little taller, feel a little better about where we are in life and what life will hold for each one of us, because no matter what, we are called beloved. We have been called beloved, and that is quite a name to live into. I hope that you will let the way God sees you, not how you always see yourself, but how God sees you, how God knows you, and how God calls you. I hope all of that will shape your life today and every day, because God has great plans for good in your life. May you live into all the goodness our God holds for you. I will see you tomorrow as we continue in the Song of Songs. Have a good day.